Ladies and gentlemen, to complement and deepen the conversation around manufacturing, we are joined by a great panel lineup of industry-leading manufacturing subject matter experts and practitioners. Our first guest panelist is Mr. Raymond Lee, who is the Program Director at Fusionex Group. Raymond has in-depth expertise in the information technology, engineering, and automation industry, as well as extensive international experience. Our second guest panelist is the Group Chief Operating Officer responsible for the global operations of Mega Fortris Malaysia. Karin White's 19 years of experience and leadership has been instrumental in developing and delivering technology-driven business services and driving profitable revenue growth for Mega Fortris Malaysia. And our next guest panelist is Mr. Adam Yee, who is the President and CEO of Siemens Malaysia. Adam has been with Siemens for 17 years, specializing in the electrical and manufacturing segments, and he is concurrently the head of digital industries in Malaysia. And rejoining the panel is Kenneth from McKinsey, who will be moderating the panel discussion. If you have any questions, do not wait until the end. Please make sure that you put in your questions early so we'll have time to address all of them. So this is definitely not a panel that you want to miss, and the panel is getting ready, so please stay tuned and we'll be back in just a short while.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us for this panel. I am very privileged today to be joined by three very respectable members of the industry, right? And I'm looking forward to this panel, right? Perhaps I'd like to just have a round of quick self-introduction, right, from our distinguished guests on the panel. Perhaps Adam.
Very good afternoon. My name is Adam Yee. I'm actually the President and CEO of Siemens Malaysia Sdn Bhd. I've been with company for 17 years. Now I'm actually also responsible for digital industry, and one of the key topics that I'm driving now is actually the Industry 4.0 technology. So I'm very much looking forward for our fruitful discussion today. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam.
Good afternoon. My name is Karin White, and I am the Group Chief Operating Officer for Mega Fortris Malaysia. We're a global group that has 25 offices worldwide. I look after the operations of the group, and currently I'm tasked amongst that to look out for the digital transformation, both in our manufacturing environment and in our global offices. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Raymond from Fusionex Malaysia. So we are a data technology company, and I'm the program director in charge of business development and also account management globally in 16 countries.
Right. Thank you. Right. And as I've said earlier, it's a pleasure to be in such esteemed company. Right. One of the things that I think we have heard quite a lot about over the last few days of this conference, right, is about the importance of Industry 4.0. And I think it's good to be joined here on the panel both by people who deliver some of these Industry 4.0 solutions, as well as people who use some of these Industry 4.0 solutions. Perhaps just to kick things off, I'd love to speak with Karin about perhaps you can tell us a little bit about your experience, right, in your own journey in Industry 4.0. How did you decide on when to start, how to start, why to start, right?
Thank you very much, Kenneth. The digital transformation for us is very interesting because we've looked at it at various approaches. Instead of not getting started, we've really thrust ourselves over the last few months into this transition phase of our evolution as a company, both in our manufacturing environment and also in the commercial side of our business. So we've really started looking at the transformation from a commercial aspect first, and we've already started laying the foundations in order for us to understand what our group business is doing and to start having predictive budgeting, predictive forecasting, AI learning within our different segmentations of the business, which is on the go as we speak. And then from a manufacturing perspective, there is no silver bullet, as we all know, when it comes to digital transformation. There is no one program or one solution which is going to fit all of your needs. We had this discussion earlier as panelists, which was very interesting. So we've really started to look at the segmentation of our business to say, what does the future look like for us, and what do we want to achieve out of this? What business, what optics do we want? What is our strategic drivers in terms of our transformation? And we've started looking at sprints in our business. So those sprints really are focused on deliverables, ROIs being met within a short amount of time, instead of it being an enterprise system where we work on it for 3 years and then there's a fail of it. So we've started looking at it by segmenting our business, and then started operating not as a fragmented environment, but within sprints to eventually get up to our full digitalization, both manufacturing and commercial, within the next 3 years.
And perhaps just as a follow-on, Karin, and I'd also love to hear perspectives from Adam and Raymond on this, right? But as you were thinking about this in Mega Fortris, right? What do you think was the starting point, right? When you decided that, when you decided that this needs to be a priority for the future, right? And how did you communicate that as a business, right, to your employees?
This is very interesting because, you know, there's a lot of talk about, not necessarily about the transformation only, but about digital culture. And digital culture is something which we found very, it's a very intricate part within the transformation journey, because the culture of your company needs to become digital. It's not necessarily only about us, you know, as leaders looking at the journey, saying this is what we want to achieve, and then subsequently leaving it to, you know, people down the line to do. We really need to take the step as leaders to say, I am the culture. We lead this culture as a company, and as a cultural change and shift, we need to be able to guide our employees and our staff, everyone from our operators right throughout. They've all got a say in our business. So we've taken that approach as Mega Fortris. Everyone from an operator to a line leader to, you know, someone in procurement, anyone that's part of our value chain has been involved in our digital discussions. It's not about us doing it from a management level to say, well, this is what I want to achieve. It's about us looking at it from our own business to say, how can we achieve this collectively? So we've looked at it as a collective, and as I mentioned, we've looked at it as a phased approach. Where do you start? No one knows. Again, there's no, what you shouldn't do is you shouldn't get lost in it. I think this is the greatest fear factor, and something which we will discuss. Don't get lost in being overwhelmed by what's out there. When it comes to transformation, start your journey. Look at the objectives. We looked at our business objectives. We said to ourselves, right, these are our strategic drivers. This is where we want to see ourselves. Now, what do we need to do that? So we've started segmenting it based on our group strategic drivers. That's how we started. There is no silver bullet for this, unfortunately.
Absolutely. I think Karin has bring out a very important point over here. I think a lot of people very much focus on the digital transformation, especially on the digital side. But I would rather say that the transformation is important for the business, especially addressing for the manufacturing industry. The most important thing is you need to know what is the pain point that you need to drive. For the pain point that we need to drive, that we can bring out the outcome from the businesses. For example, like you can do the digital transformation, you can plan out your digital transformation journey to increase your productivity. For example, in the manufacturing industry especially, you also can drive for quality. You know, a lot of production, especially in the process industry, you need more consistency in terms of the output. So you need to have robotics, for example. You need to have AI. You also need to have a certain integration in terms of automation for you to support your production output. That is also will help you to increase your productivity and quality. There's another thing also you look into, for example, in the industry of food and beverage, is very much driving for flexibility. The flexibility means that they can change the flavor from based on the customer demand, based on the consumer requirement. So flexibility is also important for most of the process industry as well as the discrete industry. And last but not least, just now I think Kenneth had brought out some of the example like BMW, for example. So nowadays you see it in the automotive industry, they are also driving for the time to market. They need to shorten the time. They need to reduce the time for product design. They want to reduce the time to do prototyping because everything can be done now in virtual. So the production planning, the engineering, production design is actually quite important for especially for the discrete manufacturing. So I look at in that perspective, yeah. Even you talk about the MNC company, big corporation, or even for the SME industry, you need to understand about one thing is important. There are so many technologies available, so many emerging technologies available in Industry 4, but you need to know exactly what is your objective, what is relevant to you. That's what really applicable for you. So every industry, every manufacturing industry or in the process industry, they have a different requirement. They have a different process know-how, application know-how. That's one part we need to know. So that's why you see lately there are people talking about readiness assessment into the consultation services to help you to transform how you to come out the blueprint, how you're going to derive of your digital blueprint, how you're going to transform your businesses. One thing for sure is another thing is also just now I has mentioned about this also. The most important person need to convince and also need to engage with this transformation is the owner of the company. It has to start from the leadership. Then from there, you need to engage with the people. Then after that, you also need to change your process because your process has to be leveraging the change of your transformation of your businesses. So all this is important. So another finding that we got to know about in the Malaysia research company, we also find that the skill set is also getting more and more important. So there's a lot of program running for upskilling, reskilling, and also in Siemens, what we do is also lately we also providing the skill development program for industry training for automation. We are also doing for mechatronic program. We're also doing for machine tool expert program. All those program is actually helping the industry to facilitate to the workers, to the industry skill worker, to be able to have the knowledge to adopt, to change, and to transform. I think that's one of the key elements that we need to look at.
Thanks, Adam. And I think if I were to summarize what we've heard from both Adam and from Karin earlier, right, is that, well, two things really, right? This is here and now. If you haven't started, start now, right? And also I think I want to build on a point that that Adam made, right? That there are so many different use cases out there. There are so many different applications of these technology. And perhaps I'd like to turn the time over to Raymond to actually tell us a little bit about, in your work, in your discussions with companies, right? How have you seen or how have you worked with them to help them to figure out, well, to answer the age-old question, right, of where do I start?
So to agree with what Karin and Adam has said, in terms of Industry 4.0 especially, there always needs to be top-down, unfortunately, because why the leader is always the one with the vision for the company. Most times when we speak to the middle management, we find that they don't really understand the values. To them, it's a bit more work. But that said, then it is about identifying the problem statement. So with Industry 4.0 and from where I come from in terms of analytics and advanced analytics, there is so many aspects in a company that we can look at. Do you want to increase the revenue? Do you want to increase the sales? Or is it an internal efficiency problem? Do you have HR problem? Do you have high employee churn? It can be things like that. Or maybe, for example, from a manufacturing environment, are your machines failing? Is the production line failing all the time? So we have to first identify that problem. And then from there, the management of the company need to form a very dedicated team. And that team needs to work through and make this a success. And in terms of when we look at Industry 4.0 from an analytics point of view, so what we can do is we can take all the data, we can churn it, and we can give you the patterns and insights to say that, okay, look, this is what you're going to do. This is what you need to do to increase your revenues. Or if it's IoT, for example, we'll tell them that, this is your estimated time to failure. You need to change this component before you stop the whole production line. But the key part is the actionable items. That is where, when you talk about just now pilot traps, right? A lot of companies are stuck into this because they spend a lot of money, they do all this. But when these results come in, they say, oh, good, it's been a big reporting exercise, but we're not going to do anything about it. So we find that, one of the sad reasons why companies get stuck in that trap. But across all industries where we are informed, not just manufacturing, we also see that there is growing importance for AI or intelligence. Yeah. So if I can just expand a little bit further, for example, during the COVID crisis, so we saw a big shift of consumer behavior moving to online digital purchasing, right? So that's also because of the MCO, shops were closed, and everybody just went on an online shopping spree. So a lot of manufacturers were impacted, retailers were impacted, even the wholesalers were impacted. So come June, what happened was that we had a big deluge of inquiries from all these companies saying, hey, online is the way to go. I want to go online. I want to participate in the marketplace. I want to build my own online e-store, which is great. But a lot of them don't realize that just doing that alone won't bring you back to pre-COVID days. It won't bring the sales back because there is, it's a whole new ballgame. It's, a marketplace. When you go in there, actually, you face a lot more competition than, for example, setting up in a mall like Mid-Valley. In Mid-Valley, there could be 10 clothing stores. But online mall, there are thousands, if not tens of thousands. So that's where AI marketing comes in, intelligence comes in. So what we help to provide, for example, is, AI pricing. So with analytics, you can say that, this is the kind of price you need to sell at to stay competitive. There are things like product bundling, and customer profiling, KYC. Because the beauty of online marketplace is that you have so much data, compared to a physical store. And with that, you can really grow the business, we talk about mainly 4 things: customer acquisition, and then conversion. So, you acquire the customer, they come to your marketplace, but you need them to buy, so that's conversion, right? And then retention. So you need them to stay, and of course, repeat sales. And all of this we can enhance with our AI engines.
Thank you, Raymond. And if I can move on to a slightly different, shift the topic slightly, right? I'm actually keen to understand from the panel, right, your experience and your thoughts around. Do you think that in approaching digitalization, right, that do you see a big difference between how SMEs do it versus how larger corporates do it?
Good question from Kenneth. I think first thing you see that most of the big, largest corporation or even the multinational company, they already have started with their digital transformation blueprint. I would say most of them, I cannot claim that or everyone, but I think they know the objectives very well on their business, because at the end of the day, they're trying to drive the business output. They want to be more competitive in the international arena. So this is what the subject matters for them. It's really important for them to make sure they are actually following the current technology that is going to benefit for their businesses. On the SME side, I think this is also a misconception that they think that this digitalization or Industry 4.0 is a very high cost implementation. And secondly, also there are also a misunderstanding about the digital technologies, what they can really help their improvement on their business. And thirdly, also, as I mentioned again about the skill set, the skill set is completely different from the conventional way of how things is doing. So especially in the manufacturing industry, now everything you need to start up with the virtual, you need to connect the virtual to the real, you need to look into the data analysis, we need to look into the AI, and all this topic is actually new to everyone. So even for the education industry, they are struggling now to come up something to bridge between the real on currently what is going on in the industry and to bring this knowledge to the university graduate. So this is also one of the programs that we are also trying to help and also trying to bring this program to the university student, especially those who are graduate from the university. So I think in that two perspective on MNC and SME, these are the different. And probably you can say that because MNC, they have really have fun to do it, or they have their size is big enough for them to invest. nobody will invest something where it's not going to drive any business output. If you want to invest, you want to see the return of investment. Once you determine this is the right program to run and it's going to bring a return of investments to you, then you can start to scale up. Think about what is the next step. Then you can derive the whole entire journey, the digital journey that you want to focusing on for your business. That's only in my perspective, in my opinion.
Yeah. So if I may contribute on that, yeah, we too face a lot of difference when we approach large enterprises and SMEs as well. So from a data technology analytics perspective, we deal a lot with the IT teams, and these IT teams include people like data scientists, data engineers. So for large enterprises, generally they already have some form of IT team that is pretty big, and they know their goals. And like what Adam was saying, they have started their journey, but most of the time it's pretty fragmented as well. But at least they have started. They have vision, because they have very different levels of management, and they are along the way there. So for large enterprises, they have started, their team is working on it, and it's just about identifying the goals. And I think like what Karin was saying, it's about getting the whole company's buy-in, because when your middle management or the people who actually key in the data don't buy in, then become very frustrated. Why is boss doing this? Why is he making me key in all this data where I used to just write it down on paper, right? That's the digitalization journey. So with large enterprises, they are already they know where they want to go. So it's about helping them build their data models, getting the insights, and then making sure they take actions about it. Now for SMEs, unfortunately, most times they don't have an IT team. They do maybe have one or two guys, but it's to look after their PCs, their office equipment. So, and that's the the part where they go, how do I start this journey? On the flip side, they are very, very agile, is what we were talking about, because there is less red tape. We can speak directly to the owners. There's no board of directors that you have to go to. So small and medium enterprises actually can move very, very, very fast. Just that, as long as they choose to start the journey. And cost is a big factor for them, because obviously they don't have as deep pockets as the large enterprises. But that's where nowadays there's a lot of technology partners, like us, and a lot of others as well, who can help them, because there are things like cloud services, subscription-based models, where it requires substantially less capex. Yeah, so they can get off the ground, it's ready to deploy. There are template-based, and a lot of these templates are based on experiences from the same industry. So, for example, whether you're in F&B, retail, the templates are there already. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Adam. Thank you, Raymond. Thank you, Adam, for your thoughts. I mean, hearing from the both of you, right? It sounds like, again, very clearly, there are some differences between SMEs and larger enterprises, but at the same time, SMEs are actually well positioned in the sense that if they choose to do it, they can respond in a much more agile manner, right? And maybe I'd like to turn a question over to Karin, right? Would you have any advice, right, for companies who are on the fence right now, who are thinking about, hey, this sounds interesting, should I how do I get people ready for this, right? How do I jump into the water? How do I get my workforce ready for this?
I think probably one of the biggest things that I've learned in business over the many years is, digitalization for me is much like an enterprise system. And if you look at the buy-in that it took for all of our companies to get an enterprise system off the ground, some companies are still in the process of getting enterprise systems off the ground. And we're now talking about an entire new era, which is digitalization, where they still can't get ERP buy-in. Now, the digitalization is something which, we're talking about SMEs, and I think a lot of the people watching are from companies that are from SMEs, which we discussed earlier. So how do we get that started? How do we approach it? I think the first port of call for companies in the SME space, you've got so many colleagues and councils in Malaysia, and so many people are willing to share. I think the best port of call is to first go out and actually look at what's happening in the industry. It's not uncommon for us to share ideas and share information. We're all part of a greater industry and a micro and macro economy. So, if we're able to share with one another on platforms and to share our own successes and our own failures. I mean, SMEs especially, you're not going to necessarily go out and get one of the top 5 transformation specialists. You might, especially if my colleagues are both sides of me. But let's say you're a small business. Go and have a look at what's in the industry. I mean, every time I've looked at the different versionings of any system that we use, I always go out with our entire team to look at who's using what within the industry, because it's a good test case for us. You can see and you can learn from their wins and their losses and their stumbles. That for me is the first port of call. Go and see what's happening in the industry at the moment. It's not top secret. I mean, transformation and digital transformation. If you look at the first automation, I mean, that was in the 1970s. We're not sitting on something which is a gold mine or something which is brand new. We've all got an enormous amount of experience in this. We're now starting to roll out a new dimension of that. So it's not new. Go and see what people have been using within your industry.
Yeah, I think that's one of the important approach, as you mentioned. Everybody is going for silos, and fragmented is one of the key challenge for every industry. If you're talking about sharing the information, some maybe have a concern about sharing the information across their industry. But I think one thing we can do is actually we can look into the whole entire value chain, the whole supply chain, and also the we should look into as well for the ecosystem, the whole entire ecosystem. This is what we are thinking. That's why in Singapore we launched the AMTC, focusing on additive manufacturing, that we are actually building up a center for the ecosystem for additive manufacturing for the industry. In Malaysia, we are also thinking about having such a concept of ecosystem that we can have a marketplace that the SME or the industry player can visit, can see, they can consult about the entire ecosystem, which is benefit to their implementations. I think this is also one of the key subject we need to address. The second subject is we need to address as well is actually the skill development. We need to really look into the high talent. A hybrid talent is actually important in our industry now, for time being, what we see. As you said, automation is not something new for the industry 3.0, we're talking about that. I think for industry 4.0 is getting all together. Connectivity is a key element for us to look into that. So I think for that fundamental approach, I would say that it's important everyone to understand that you need to really understand about what is really important for you to make the technology out of the benefit for your company. I think this is one of the key things that we need to address.
Yeah. And Adam, I think you talk a lot about skills and hybrid talents, right? Which I fully agree. This is something that as we prepare forward, it's not just about the business cases, it's not just about the technology, but making sure that our people and our employees and our workers are actually well equipped for some of that, some of these changes that are coming, right? And I want to ask a very practical question, right? From all across all the panelists, right? I think a very real problem that a lot of companies are going to face is that I've got a large amount of mid-career people who graduated from university or were trained in a certain field a long time ago, and now we're coming up with data science and analytics and all of these things, right? Practically, how can a company practically think about equipping their workers with some of these new skills?
So if I can take on this question. So we talk about maybe, like you say, a middle-aged employee. So I'm going to assume that this guy probably has a lot of experience. Now in any industry, any field, experience is very important. And before data analytics came along, that's what holds the company together, experience. So for example, in a production line, and you see that something's going wrong, and you don't have data to help you, where do you go? You go to the guy who's worked the longest, and he's going to go, oh yeah, this happened 10 years ago. I remember what happened. That's the problem. So experience to me is still very important. But what they don't have to be afraid of Industry 4.0 or analytics coming in. They have to understand that it is the data that will help them to make more data-driven decisions, better decisions. And for people like this, it's about blending their experience with the additional data that is coming in, and then maybe, you know, they will, because experience probably gives them, you know, 70 to 80% judgment call. You know, that's very important for people, especially in manufacturing lines. But now with Industry 4.0, and you get these data points coming in, it's going to churn the data and tell you that, you know, because I have 2,000 data points coming in, it means that this component is going to fail. And with his experience, I think it's going to improve the efficiency. So it's not, for people like that, I believe the experience is still very valuable, and they need to learn how to, you know, have that synergy with analytics to make better decisions.
I think just to touch on that, a very good point, because experience does go a very long way. And I think, you know, our people are one of our core strengths in our business. Some of the research that I've done, and also what I've seen in various companies and various sizes, is that people, and I'm middle-aged, so I get it. I do understand. But what they do is, you know, there's a lot of, we have to define what our workforce is currently doing. So do we want people who are of a certain age to understand or to do? And there's a very big difference between the two. So am I asking someone or one of my management team or one of my staff members who might be 50, 55, 60, whatever the case is, to actually program the analytics for me? Or am I asking them to understand the journey that we're going on and to give them the tools they need to understand what we're currently doing in terms of transformation? So that's a fundamental difference. And what a lot of companies are doing at the moment is they're doing on-the-job training. They're doing real-time on-the-job training, which is showcasing exactly what we're doing from a transformation perspective, and they're teaching whilst they're doing. And they're doing that specifically with age groups who were not privy to the data and information that we were. It's not that they are not capable of it. It's that they've come from a generation which wasn't as light on its feet as we are now. So, you know, on-the-job training for me is something which is very important for that generation, right through from your C-suite to your operators. Real-time on-the-job training makes an incredible difference.
Absolutely. I think, Karin, you pointed out one of the important key elements. On-job training is actually the most efficient, the most effective way of how we can bring up the skill of the individuals. One thing we did actually recently, we signed a memorandum or MOU with MIDA. We're trying to build out the high talent program. So what we do is, in this program, we are still undergoing the design stage, how we want to facilitate this high talent program. In one part, we're trying to upskill the graduates or the people, the general workers who are actually having a gap between the current skill that are available and also the conventional way of doing things. So that's one thing we do, and also we do on-job training. This on-job training is actually quite critical for everyone. At the same time, also to facilitate this high talent program, we Siemens just start up with this Siemens Innovation and Resources Training Center in Filio Damansara 1. We haven't launched it yet, but we are trying in the midst of preparation, because what we want to do over there is actually we providing the industry training, we give the hands-on training, we also trying to facilitate to all our industry customer to transform their workers or upskill their workers according to the needs. Yeah? So go back to the fundamental. One thing is important for everyone to understand. Before we embark to Industry 4, foundation is there. So the foundation, if I talk about manufacturing industry, make sure that you have upgraded your automation system, you connected your automation system for your as a connectivity of the machine. Then you start to look into collecting the data, and from there onwards, then you look into how we can benefit out of the data analytics that you have done. So I think in all, I think it's important for everyone to understand this is an ecosystem, not only driven by one or single company. It's actually an ecosystem. It consists of the company who are in the supply chain or in the value chain, who can help out the industry to transform, to increase their capability, and also help them to really look into the perspective of the future, what we should go forward, and how we can make our company more competitive, yeah, especially the Malaysian company.
Thank you all. I think we've also been receiving quite a number of questions from the audience, and we're going to flash a few of these up for our panel to take a look at. Right, I think we have a question from Elaine. In your opinion, where is Malaysia at in IR 4.0, and how can Malaysia improve in its speed?
Okay, I think I might just step in very quickly. I think both of my colleagues here, my panelists, are probably, same as you, probably better versed in Malaysia. But, just what I've seen recently is, Malaysia has got a fantastic drive towards Industry 4.0, and there's numerous government drives from a funding perspective to really get going and get it off the ground. I do believe that there's still a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of work to be done building the fundamentals. And if you really look at it, has Malaysia successfully done Industry 3.0? So, and I'm not saying it hasn't, but I think those things are something to be looked at. The push is there, the drive is there, but I do believe that there is still some work to be done from an Industry 4.0 perspective to get started within the manufacturing environment especially.
Yeah, so in terms of where Malaysia is in IR 4.0, so we talked about large enterprises. So unfortunately, with most countries, large enterprises form generally 5 to 8% of all the companies in the country, and the rest are all SMEs, 98%. I would say for large enterprises, they have taken that step forward, but not fully, but at least they have started the journey. The issue is with SMEs, and that is where we as industry players or the government as well, we need to, I think, put more effort in, whether it's in terms of forums like this or education, and giving them the strength and confidence to embark on this journey, because I think IR 4.0 is in years, right, since this term was coined. So we as what Karin said, we do have quite a journey to go.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's still a very in the beginning stage, I would say, and I believe that many of our government agency is actually providing a lot of support and funding to the SME especially. That's a crucial one for everyone, especially in the manufacturing industry. You look at the recent report showing that the biggest contribution in terms of our GDP during the COVID MCO period is actually in the manufacturing industry, whereby in the past is actually service industry is the highest contribution for our GDP. But if you look at the past 6 months after the MCO, and you look at the manufacturing industry, is actually supporting our economy. So it's actually crucial for us to understand, for the companies, especially on the manufacturing company, to transform and get ready for themselves to be more competitive, to stay alive, yeah, make Malaysian proud again, that what we are doing. Okay, I think we have a lot of good people, skilled people. We have a lot of very strategic as a country in this region. I believe we can do better.
Sorry, just to add on to Adam's point, right? So I fully agree that the manufacturers, Malaysia has always been very, very strong regionally, internationally as well in manufacturing, and one of the things that we try to ask the manufacturers to focus on is keep doing what you're doing best, which is manufacturing, which is making your products, be it gloves or furniture or automotive. Keep doing that and work with good technology partners, that help you in the journey. Because when they diversify and they think, oh no, I'm going to go on Industry 4.0, I need to form this big team, I need to hire 10 data scientists, 50 IT people, then they lose focus. So we always ask them to, keep doing what you're doing, manufacture what you're manufacturing, work with good technology partners to help you address this and start you along the journey. And like you said, it starts in phases. We take baby steps first. And as you see the benefits and these projects come to fruition, then you may want to expand your IT department or hire more data scientists or data engineers. I think that is the low risk approach in that sense. And when you see the results, then you think that, oh, it's really worth investing in. I see the fruits of my labor.
And I think, I'll take a slightly more contrarian view to this, right? I think having been exposed quite a lot to the, especially to the SME community, a lot of times what what comes out is that, I'm interested, I want to start. How is the government going to help me? I'm not just saying that this happens in Malaysia, but it happens in many other countries around the world as well, right? And one caution that at least I would like to add on is that, I do fundamentally believe that your Industry 4.0 journey needs to start on your own steam, right? If the government comes in and supports, right? If there is if there's some sort of funding that's available, fine, by all means, tap into that, right? But don't rely on it, right? Because at the end of the day, I think what you will then be doing is you will just be following the trend of what everyone else is doing, which is we're waiting for somebody to move first. And how is that a way of staying ahead and staying competitive? So I think we'll go ahead and take on another question, right? I think we have quite a few again from the audience, and perhaps we should address the question from me. MEE. I'm sorry. So let me read it out. Is it a must or advisable to have a dedicated team to focus on L&D 4.0 implementation, or can we make use of the current operation teams to drive it? Any statistics to show the success rate for these two options?
Sorry, I just start on this. Yeah. So again, we receive this question a lot from our interested companies that want to do IR 4.0 or analytics. Yeah. So again, with the SMEs, they are very scared because do I have to hire new people? Then they keep asking us what CVs, and we always tell them no. We need a dedicated team for sure. It must be a dedicated team, but it can be from your current staff pool, and I would need that because there is various knowledge among all. I would need one person from procurement, one person from supply chain management, one person from production, because these people give different insights. But they can form that dedicated team from within their staff pool. Don't bother with the technology of how to build a data model, how do I ingest the data, how do I extract it, because the technology partners can do all of that. But they must be a dedicated team, and preferably that dedicated team must be led, as Adam said, either by the owner himself or at least a C-level. Then you will see results.
I think just from a use case perspective, exactly as Raymond's saying, it doesn't need to be a individual team that you bring on board. Use the people that you have within the business. They know it better. You're not asking them to be the transformation specialists. You're asking them to be part of the journey. And again, it comes back to that cultural identification of how we want to move forward. So with the right partners on board, you certainly don't need anyone specific to join the team. Only perhaps when you evolve in your transformation journey, you would bring somebody in to really spearhead the growth within the company. But in terms of that question with an L&D aspect to it, on-the-job training comes into play again. You've got the right partners, and you've got the people spearheading the projects and the transformation. They teach the people within your organization. You don't need to send them out. You don't need to spend money on that. Let the people who are, it's teach the teacher. It's it's the same concept that happens in any of those environments. Let the people within the business understand exactly what's going on, and then choose somebody who's spearheading it and let them teach the people within the business. So it doesn't actually cost you anything.
Good. Thank you. Perhaps we'll take another question then. We have one from Wesley with an interesting question. In terms of percentage, how much time should we spend identifying the problem statement or analyzing the requirements in the overall Industry 4.0 project?
Let me come into this. We did one of the exercise on one of the process industry company to do the we have this called a 0.1 design manufacturing design program to do consultation and helping the company to really identify the pain point, look into the improvement, really deep dive into the implementation, how they can start up with their transformation program. The whole exercise for problem statement, identify pain point, and also describe the implementation stage. It took about 3 to 6 months time, at least minimum. because you need to understand that every industry have a different process requirement. Every industry have a different productions requirement as well. The system that they are currently using, the process, the culture they have in the company, engagement with the stakeholder is also important in that process as well. So in my opinion, yeah, based on our experience, 3 to 6 months is a minimum.
I think it's very subjective depending on how severe your problem statement is. I would split it into two different portions. Identifying the problem statement, especially if it's done by the owner or the management, the senior management, is as fast as 5 minutes. You know what the issue is with your company. I'm not making enough money. My staff are leaving me. I have 50% downtime all the time. That's your problem statement. Now then you go to the next portion, which is scoping. Then and you try to understand, okay, we know that this company has this problem statement. Let's see how to solve it. And by saying how to solve it, it means that I look at all the data sets that they have. You know, we work with their people. They are because they are the SMEs, right? They are the subject matter experts. So then we look at it and say, you know, is this where your problem is coming from? And then these are the data sets that we need to ingest and come up with advanced analytics. And that is very subjective. The scoping process itself, you know, like Adam said, it could be weeks, it could be months, but definitely not years, but you know, it could be weeks or months. So it's very subjective, but to me, the problem statement is very fast. As the owner, you know what the problem statement is already.
And also focus on the problem statement, and because you cannot do so many things at one time, yeah. Focus on those problems that immediately can give you a return. As shortest time as possible. For example, like energy saving. If based on the energy saving, every month you have a saving. Based on that return of saving of the investment, you can reinvest again for the next problem statement that you have. So that is the way how you should derive and describe the journey of your digital transformation. So it is not something that one project you can do it overnight. Yeah, not possible. It's a journey.
Don't be ambitious.
Yeah, don't be so ambitious on that.
Yeah, don't start with like 10 problem statements. Just focus on one at a time. You know,
yeah, and one at a time, and take from the return and then reinvest again. I think that will help you to accelerate your transformation.
Thank you for your perspectives. So I think that is all the time that we have, right? And I hope that you have, that everyone who is tuning in has learned quite a fair bit about from our distinguished panelists. Right, and I wish you have a good day ahead. Stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.